Well, we're ready to start. And the four of us are very happy to be here today to have a discussion about building ways to recruit and engage our members and our prospective members, and also the importance of mentorship. It's a challenging time now. Everyone is busy with life. Time is at a premium, and organizations have to constantly readjust to keep up with changing communication channels. There's great potential for CMA Alliance to grow, and we hope this couple of hours will produce some tangible means to use towards that goal. We're very fortunate to have Jacqueline, Mindy, Simon-Pamer, and Regina Stetkvich with us here today to help CMA Alliance set a pathway for recruiting and engaging members into our local, state, and national alliances. They each bring a wealth of expertise from their involvement at the local, state, and national level of the alliance. Jacqueline and Regina have both been AMA Alliance directors, as well as working on committees. And Mindy has served several years on the AMA Alliance External Communications Committee with me and the early career committees also. These ladies have also participated with many of us in previous CMA Alliance and Western States meetings, so they feel the pulse of our organization. Well, I am here as the seasoned member of the group with 38 years of involvement with my county alliance in Santa Clara County, with CMA Alliance as state president and numerous other positions, and on the AMA Alliance board as a director and as a member of various committees for many years there. These are some fun memories. Here I am with Jackie Gelderman 27 years ago, as she installs me as the Santa Clara County Medical Association Auxiliaries President in 1991. Yes, we had lots of shoulder pads in those days. To the right are our Santa Clara County past presidents, including Suzanne Jackson and Siggy Stillman, along with our AMA Alliance president then, Nancy Schneider, in 2007. You see yourself up there, Nancy?
No, she can't.
Oh, it's not showing up very well. The picture. You're on the left.
Okay. Far in? I believe you.
Left.
Left in.
Next, Suzanne Jackson and I are pictured with Jackie Gelderman at one of her meetings in 1991. During the 4 decades of my involvement with the Medical Auxiliary / Alliance, there have been many changes in the world, in the practice of medicine, and in the makeup of families, and communication channels resulting in the need for the change in organizations like the Alliance. When I joined the Auxiliary / Alliance, our physician spouse friends were our main social group, and many of them have become lifelong friends. We all had our own careers, but most stayed home with the kids and worked on volunteer activities and on our monthly programs. We always had monthly programs. All physicians were required to join the Medical Society at that time, so it was easy to know who to invite to join the Auxiliary / Alliance. When I joined, there were hundreds of local members. And one vivid memory is preparing the monthly bulk mailings for those hundreds of people that were sent out, since we didn't have any electronic communications. So our budgets were huge at that time for stamps, or for, if you had bulk mail, it still was expensive. So it's kind of fun to think back to those days, and many of you can remember those days. One of the joys of belonging to the Alliance for me has been able to meet and work with our young physician family members and to follow them through their journey. Mentorship is key to the future of our alliances at all levels. And those of us in the baby boomer and the transitionalist generations have more time now to be members. I thought it would be fun for you to stand if you were part of the baby boomers born after 1946. Yeah. Yeah, or 46, born in 46 or after.
After. Come on, Stacy.
my children.
So, we are the baby boomers,
The
okay?
greatest generation, that's what ours is.
Right. Okay, now, the greatest generation are the traditionalists. If you were born before 1946, would you please stand?
Traditionalists.
My daughter calls us ancients because 60-year-olds are old.
My grandkids say older than dirt. Wow, I haven't taught my grandkids that. Well, I didn't teach it to them.
In the Alliance, we are very fortunate to have a wealth of members in both categories. And we are primed to be able to help the younger people because we've been there. We have done what they've been through. Some of us have. I met my husband at the end of his cardiology practice, so I didn't experience all the training, but many of you did. And so we're primed to be there to help. We also have more time and to just be able to be there. It's been great to be able to personally be involved with two groups recently. One in Los Angeles, we have a Los Angeles Physician Family Network, and it was conceived to go along with the Organized Medicine Medical Association. There are many Facebook groups and many doctors' wives, things out there to join. But we felt it was important to have something that was there, open to everybody who was a physician family member, and bring them in. And then, if they were interested, then we would propose membership to them, and we would say that their membership in the local, state, and national would be complimentary, paid for by a fund of some of the mentors, people who are in the LACMA Alliance and who funded this. And so this has been a really wonderful personal experience for Ting, for Stacy, for Jackie, for the rest of us who've been working in Los Angeles with this group. And one of the exciting things about this too, I think, is that you never know what's going to happen. For instance, we met Mindy, she and Regina's husbands were at El Toro in Northern California, Bay Area, and they were in medical school. So now they went different places, and now Mindy's back in Los Angeles, and she's on the board of the LACMA Alliance. And plus, in the meantime, I met them both, or worked with them both, with the AMA Alliance. So here we are, here's a nation of people. Here we have certain individuals. And I'm not gonna go too much further, but I think we need to focus on the fact that even one relationship that you build, or two, or three, we have Jacqueline here too, you build those relationships, you never know what's gonna happen, but it is contagious. And now that we are a social network and we can communicate virtually, you never know what's going to happen. I mean, there's such tremendous future for our mentorship and for bringing people in. And I do want you to, each of you has a copy of the recent Physician Family magazine, and the Los Angeles group is highlighted in here in one article, but the other articles are fantastic, and I urge you to read them. Most of you are AMA Alliance members already, so you probably got one. But if you haven't read it, I encourage you to.
I'm happy to take any membership applications. I already have mine.
Thank you.
So,
So funny.
good thing we know each other like that. All right. So I'm Jacqueline. These are my two twin daughters, and I just wanted to talk to you today. We were talking about how we gain new members, especially how we gain younger members that have more time, that can get involved and really help do some of the work. When we started talking about this panel, it reminded me of a conversation that I had in Chicago. It was my first annual meeting in Chicago about 5 years ago. And I remember speaking to an older member, and we were just making small talk, and this member said, I just don't understand doctors these days. They are so lazy. And I said, I'm sorry, what? And this member said, back in my day, my husband came in and he did the work, and it was all about the work and the patients and so on. He had a work ethic. Now, when we're interviewing people for his practice, all these young doctors that come in, the first thing that they ask is, what is the vacation schedule? And that really got me to thinking, and that sort of made me feel disconnected from this member, because I see our life and I see my husband's life, and I don't think he's lazy. And as we discussed it, I said, well, let me ask you, was your husband, and I'll pull the room here, were your spouses very involved with the kids' school? Yes? No?
I have one that was. Yes.
Okay.
No.
So,
No.
did they help change diapers?
No.
Yeah.
Yes, he did that.
Pediatrician, yeah.
Okay. So when I asked these questions to this member, she said, oh no, he came,
He's a physician.
did his work, he came home, we had dinner at the dinner table, he got his paper, he went and sat in his chair, and he just took the time to unwind. Exactly. But that got me to thinking about understanding these generational differences. And so today, for me, what I want to talk to you all about is, before we recruit them, we have to understand what younger people are thinking, what their life looks like, why they do things the way they do. Because you really could look at it as these young doctors are asking about vacation schedules because they're lazy. But for me, I came back and I gave her the answer. I said, well, a lot of households now, it's both parents are working, the kids are in so many extracurriculars. It takes me a year to schedule out vacation between all of their activities, my work, his work, and the physician practice. It's just not the same. So to me, that was a very logistical question versus a entitlement question. So I wanted to go and talk about these generations. So Generation X, that's where I am. A lot of the Generation X and Millennials after the Boomers, right? They're very outcome oriented, very output focused. They want to get in, get the work done. They still want fun and diversity, but they also want meaningful work. They want to make sure that they know that if they're going to give their time, they're not wasting their time. It's valued work. After that, we have, I'll skip that. We have the Millennials. And Millennials, I think it's sort of a running joke, right? A lot of people say, oh gosh, they're so entitled and they're so sheltered and so on. What's very important, I just came from an Asian Chamber of Commerce meeting on Thursday, and we did a whole panel discussion. And the people presenting did a big study for McDonald's, because McDonald's wants to engage a younger workforce, and they want to get the message across that this is meaningful work. It's a career path. It's not just, slinging burgers. And what was very interesting is all these millennials were saying, we don't want to be made fun of. We don't want you to call us names. We just want to be engaged in a different way. So Regina pointed out to me there is a secondary, it's called Exennial, is that right? Exennial. So, see, I don't even know how to say it, but that's me. So with this group, it's so funny because they say basically it's an analog childhood and a digital adulthood.
Oh.
It's really sort of this cross between. They understood what it was like when we had beepers and we had to run home to a landline and pick up calls but then we saw the birth of social media. So when we're talking about recruiting, what I'd like for you guys to figure out is, what is your target audience? I think millennials, when we did this in Las Vegas, we really drilled down deep and thought, these are the programs we want. What personalities and where are people in their life that can fulfill that? We went after medical student spouses, and it didn't work because they just don't have the time nor the means. We don't have a strong residency program in Las Vegas, so we couldn't really test that out. We have a few, but not enough to really make an impact. We grew our GME program this past year, but what we thought was we really wanted to figure out a way to really target Zennials and Generation X. The reason why is our monthly luncheons, our activities, they're not cheap anymore. It's no longer going to somebody's home and doing a potluck. Now it's, $40, $50 for lunch a month, plus our fashion show, it's $200. I mean, so we had to find the type of age range where they are well enough off, but are still having enough free time and autonomy to volunteer. So I think that if we only focus on getting the younger, they're not necessarily going to be the one that fills this hands-on volunteer hours that you need. And that's just what we found in Las Vegas. So when we were looking at it, I was thinking, okay, well, what does the life look like for an Alliance member now? And I found this diagram about a balanced life, but it looked too neat. So I thought, this is more it. Everything's just jumbled on top of each other. And so what they call us now after the boomers, they call it the squeeze generation. And why it's called the squeeze generation is because we do feel the squeeze. There is rising housing prices at the same time that physician pay is declining. There's more school debt. There is, in the past where a college education was not necessarily mandatory, now it is. The growing trend is everybody goes to college just to get an entry-level position. And with that, then you have a tremendous amount of debt, both for college and for medical school. So because you have the squeeze in finances, you now then have double income earners, double income households. So then there is a squeeze in time. There's less time for the family. There's less possibility of balanced work life. You have to find childcare help just so that both parents can go to work. So I wanted to talk to you about what are these factors that impact what an Alliance member's life looks like now. So, and I use myself as an example because I just, and some of the members in Las Vegas, I know a lot of this anecdotally also, as well as the research. So right now, I think that you have to understand their whole universe, right? And you have the Alliance member. Obviously, a huge part of it is children. Even though I'm 42, I have very, very, very young kids at home. And that's because for us, we were told we could have it all. We were told that we could have a career, get married, have a child on our hip, look great doing it, and balance it all. And I believed that. I really bought into that. So when I was in law school, I had a plan. Michael is very, very, very measured. And I said, you need to propose by this date because I've got a calendar and I've got a schedule to keep. So we got married, and then I was 27. My mom was like ready to she was just ready to write me off, that nobody would take an old maid like me, And then what we didn't realize is it took us 7 years to have kids, and you see that more and more now, especially my generation. I know so many people like myself that had to go through fertility because you tried to take care of your career first. So when I went in and I was told I was advanced maternal age, that really threw me because we really thought we were on track. So now with children, so we have young children, or ours are younger than most, or children going into in high school or going into college. What they're showing now is children have more stress now than they have ever had before. And you might know this with your grandkids or even with your own children. They face depression. The American Psychology Association said that among the top 10 is depression, is bullying, is social media anxiety, and then they did a deeper dive into what is causing all of these what's causing all this stress. And the three major things that kids worry about now is how they perform in school, how they're going to get into college, and how are they going to pay and the family finances to take care of that. Because I looked up the stats here in California. If you do private school, private in California averages about 10, 11,000 just for elementary school. And then
Preschool is 23,000.
yes, in bigger cities it's more than that. And high school, it averages about 19,000 for private. Now in Manhattan, my brother-in-law anesthesiologist in Manhattan. He pays $45,000 a year for kindergarten.
What?
So
Manhattan.
for Manhattan. So there's just tremendous pressure for these children to perform. So they are now going from academics to a multitude of extracurriculars, and there's just so much stress on them. So that's what our children's lives look like. And the worst of it is they're growing up and all their mistakes, everything, all their social interactions magnified by social media. And they don't have the sense to refrain from posting everything, right? So that's what our sphere for children looks like. Now for physician practice, we all know that they face burnout. AMA has shown that a major contributor is there's just no physician satisfaction in practice anymore. It shows that for every hour that a physician spends with a patient, he spends 2 hours doing administrative work. So with physicians, what you're seeing is you're seeing an overregulation, you're seeing greater burdens through things like a lot of the opioid laws now create greater burdens with the PDMP, with EMR, EHR. You're also seeing a whole different way of them interacting with patients. If you remember the SOTILs, you see a drop in the esteem of how people view physicians, because now it's the age of Google, right? And I always see that mug that says, "Don't confuse your Google search with my MD degree."
No.
You know?
Isn't that great? I love that.
So there's really a lot that faces our physicians, and they're under so much stress also because they have to process so much more information than in the past. So it's one of these things where technology is a help and a hindrance in a way, right? So then you've got the children bubble, the physician bubble, and what connects it? It's the alliance spouse.
Mm-hmm.
We're the ones that have to hold all these balls together. So obviously for the alliance spouse, our anxiety, our stress, our life looks different because it's different how we manage our children and how we manage our household. On top of that, this generation, everybody's well educated. They have their own career. They don't want to give that up. I think that this generation, we're not satisfied with being known as a doctor's wife. It's not a badge of honor. We want our own individuality and we want our own talents recognized. So now that you understand sort of those three spheres and what that looks like, you know, we have different careers and different expectations. So why I asked you about what marriage looked like in your house is, as a person that has my own career and as someone that was sort of raised in this women's empowerment mindset, I expect my husband to pull his weight at home. He has to take out the garbage. I mean, he might be a surgeon at work, but when you come home, you're a husband and you're a father and you have to help. And I think that that is a very different expectation. So I know that in the burnout CME that we did in Vegas, my husband had a very long talk with Warren Holloman, and he said it's very common. A lot of these physicians with young families, they feel this need that they have to be a good dad, but they still have all this tremendous pressure at work. So then at the end of the day, when you're looking at this whole scheme of things, so we have to sort of think now, what does the alliance now have to look like? How do we as an organization have to adapt to understand the world that these younger alliance members are living in? And I think that and this is great, this AMA burnout, you can pull that off the AMA website or I can send it to you. And I think Judy, you were talking, or I'm sorry, Cammie, you were talking about economic impact. All of that's on the AMA website as well. But you're seeing a rise in women working and being either breadwinners or co-breadwinners, yet you don't see their household work and involvement going down. That's the thing that's hard, is it's maintaining. So if we understand that that's what this alliance member looks like, then what can we do? Well, one, first and foremost, and I speak from experience on this, you have to have efficiency in your organization. You have to have efficiency in your meetings. You can't have 2-hour, 3-hour, 4-hour meetings that don't produce anything, and then you come back a month later and you talk about the same thing. You have 2 or 3 meetings like that with the younger generation, they're out of there. They like variety. You know, a lot of the younger generation now are not only juggling their own careers and the extracurriculars and so on, so lunches might not always work. You have to have some evening events, you have to have some weekend events, you have to have some virtual events. Task forces and limited projects work really, really well because it's a defined project where people have metrics and they can measure if they've done a good job, how much they've contributed. So on the bottom there, that bottom picture is a picture of just our luncheons and in Vegas. And you know, we'll get between 45, 50 to 80 for a luncheon. And even though a majority of our members work outside the home, they make the time because their life is so much on social media. They do want that one-on-one, but you have to stay on task and keep that schedule for that luncheon. And then the upper picture, we started doing some things in the home. We started doing things that were really fun, things that just seemed really fresh, so shopping events and so on. Things a little glamorous. You need things a little glamorous in Vegas. And we really got a really good response with that. So I think that, you know, one of the McDonald's study that they came up with, I wanted to share with you a couple of things. They said, you know, what you need to really understand about this group is, where are my notes here? Is that they want first, if you really want to engage people of this younger generation, don't tell them who you are. Don't tell them, hey, we're the Alliance, and then on your website or in your presentations, you just list all the things that you do, all the projects. They don't want to know that. They want to know why you do that. Why do you do those projects? Why is it meaningful to you? They want you to take them on a journey with you. I think that sometimes we make the mistake of saying, oh, okay, well, we'll get the young guys to come in and just talk to us about social media. They don't want that. What they want is they want to be involved in the major decision process early on. Don't bring them at the end and just give them a task and don't give them a say. They want a say in shaping this organization. And then finally, I think finally what they were saying is, you know, this younger generation, they really want you to talk to them, not at them. I love this, I've heard it all weekend, I love this issue of we do it for the friendships, but I think Suzanne really hit the nail on the head. With this younger generation, it's not just about the friendships, it's also about mentoring. It's also about building their skills. I have plenty of friends. Why do I come here? I come here because Debbi constantly teaches me things. Judy now is teaching me how to be a better leader. I mean, the way she runs meetings and no nonsense. I mean, I learn a lot. So I love you guys, and I would come here and hang out with you, but I also come to this organization because I need to grow myself. I don't want to put my talents to waste, and if I feel like this organization isn't going to let me grow, then it's not that hard to find another that will. So if you can understand that mindset, I hope it's helpful.
Very good. Hi again. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, great. Okay, so I'm going to talk to you just to touch in on relationships and recruitment. I definitely, and starting off with people and the power of relationships, it's interesting because coming here and going to the different events in Chicago, it's really emphasized over and over again the power of relationships here in this community, in this organization. People make up an organization, right? And people, this is a quote, now granted it used to be the company I work for, but I really do like it because people are the source of key resources, opportunities, information, and the like.
And so that's so true, right? We can make an organization or we can break it. So, and just having those relationships. And so, I also really feel like the thing about the Alliance that I've really loved is the power of the relationships, but nationally, because being, a younger member where, in training, medical school, then residency, we don't know where we're going to be, but being able to go to these different meetings, being able to meet people and then see their faces again, whether it's through video conference on committees or other, events, it's just this nice reinforcement of here's this person that understands what I'm going through and this life of this really fun adventure called the medical life. So there's that. And then also the mentorship has been amazing. I'd like to say Debbie's like my Alliance mom. She introduced me to, when I met her, she really introduced Regina and I to a lot of the setup of the Alliance, how things are organized. I've just learned so much from her. When we served on the AMA Alliance as the national board, Julie Nguyen, and now that I'm here in LA, Elizabeth, it's been awesome to get to know her and it's been really fun, and I'm really excited about for however long that we're down here in LA to continue that. So, no matter who you meet or who you might bring on within the Alliance, wherever you live in whatever county or state, these relationships are huge, and it doesn't matter how old you are or how, what your age is, everybody can benefit and have a mutual benefit. I was going to tell you about my story, which I did already kind of in our meeting when Cammie asked, but that's really the cincher. I think when I was first part of the Alliance, I was trying to understand it. I was like, I see this as a really great community network of people, but I don't really know how it's going to affect me. And just that really terrible experience and having the network of people come together was a beautiful thing. And so that is, sorry, I'm a little shaky. It's just a very beautiful thing. So I think if I can bring that story and keep telling people, they're like, oh, that's really amazing. I'm like, yeah, it's this great network and community of women and also men, that can help us through whatever happens in our life. So, next, I just wanted to run through some numbers. Oh yeah, I should probably click that. There you go. So this is really interesting. I pulled this off of the, I would say the California maybe Medical Board website, but this is from 2016 to 2017, so it might be more now or less. I don't know if anybody has other numbers. But it's 113,100 licensed physicians. Yes.
43,000 of them belong to CMA.
Okay.
So we're really missing a lot there too.
Yes. Yes, and so this is a huge number, right? And maybe 50%, I'm lowballing it here, have significant others or partners, right? So there's a lot of opportunity there. I had brought up this, and I think, I don't know if you had, Judy, if you had different data, but 30,659 were the number of licensed physicians in LA County. That's
I just know when Dr. Ruth Haskins gave her talk at the Board of Trustees in, I think it was March, she said there were 43,000 members of CMA, so, and a good lot of those, of course, come from LA, so that's possible.
Yeah.
As large as LA is.
Right, it's a large number. I don't know what state breakdown.
They quoted 31,000.
Yeah, 31,000.
Yeah.
And then next, I just got this from Carol from the LACMA group, and I wanted to know how many active physicians were part of LACMA members. 3,000. It's a lot less, but you think about that.
1%, yeah. This is only 3,000 physicians.
That includes medical students, residents.
Wow. That seems low, doesn't it?
That's what she said it was approximately. She didn't exactly look it up, but she sent me an email.
Is that real?
That's the average.
Oh, it is?
I think there's 6,000 members when you include they got 700 people from LA County, Department of Health.
Oh, I see.
Some groups, but.
Wow, that's low.
Which Carol?
I think that's Mindy's point, though.
Yeah,
Right.
it is.
But you gotta start somewhere. So I mean, we're kind of rebuilding things, right? So 3,000 maybe 50% of these people have significant others, partners, spouses. So that's still a number that we could reach to help spread the word. And this is a picture of when my husband and I, in March, we took a trip to Vancouver, British Columbia, and we take this ferry out there. And I have this because when you look at that number of 131,000 physicians in the state of California, right? And I'm like, oh my gosh, like I feel that's my husband down there, but I feel like that small sometimes looking at this huge mountain of like all the things and potential, and there's a lot to do here. And so when we talk about recruitment avenues, I thought we could take a moment and kind of talk through even brainstorm. So I had a brainstorm activity, but I think because of the way the room is set up, we could just talk about it openly as a discussion for a few minutes. And so basically, what I'm curious about is when we think about recruitment avenues, right? You all had joined because somebody told you about it, right? And so now we're kind of faced with looking at other ways to bring people in, right? With the avenue of social media, you can like find groups and stuff, but there's also other ways, right? There's residency programs, finding out who that person is, that point of contact. When I was in Wisconsin a few years ago, I just dropped by. I'm from Milwaukee, Wisconsin originally, if nobody knows that. I know Stacy back there, she knows that because we found out we were both from Wisconsin. But I just swung by the Milwaukee Medical School, and I just was like, hey, what's the name of the person that handles the residency programs here for physicians or incoming physicians? And I want to tell them a little bit about the Alliance. And at that point it was the National Alliance, but because I don't know about the state one. But just, I'd like to talk through ways on how we can help each other and kind of brainstorm some avenues that we can connect with potential partners of physicians or residents or students, what things that you have found that have really worked, things that are learning opportunities where you're like, I tried to do this, maybe it didn't work. So yeah, that's what I'm hoping we can just have a quick discussion on that.
Have
Yes.
you heard Dr. Is it Sion? S-I-O-N? He is the California physician in charge of young physicians group members. So
Okay.
I met him, but I haven't had a chance to talk to him yet at the Board of Trustees.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something we should tag on to and say, you're in charge of young physicians, how can we get their spouses and all of you to...
So what is his role?
He's from Los Angeles.
Okay.
He's actually the president-elect, and we love that it's moving toward younger physicians, and he's working hard to engage his peers. And
So he is on the
trying
section,
to
not
get
young.
younger leadership. And
What's his name?
Sion, S-I-O-N.
What?
And I don't know his first name.
He has a brand new baby.
Oh, does he? Oh, you know what? I think I did see that on Facebook. Facebook or Instagram? I don't know which.
And you said what was his role?
He's in charge of young physicians coming into practice.
The young physician section
Yeah,
for
section.
CMA.
It's a section of CMA.
Oh, yes,
Oh, this is last
No, he's our president-elect, and he's a new father.
Yeah. So that's one we should really get to know.
Okay.
I just happened to see that.
How do you spell his last name, Judy?
S-I-O-N.
S-I-O-N.
Okay.
Sion, I think is how you say it, but I could be wrong because I don't know what nationality he is.
Or CMA. Does the individual counties also have a position like that too?
Not necessarily. Orange County,
Okay.
as far as I know, does not as of yet, although they now are starting a whole group of new things. Like they have one doctor doing just wellness. He's doing wellness seminars every
Mhm.
month. I'm trying to go to them to see what they're doing about physician burnout, and so I end up showing up, and they love to have me, so I'm usually the only nurse there, and most of the time the spouse. So,
Okay.
but as far as the section on young members here, I'll find out.
They do on the national level, the AMA has a section
Hmm.
that, so I'm thinking possibly every state would have a section
Okay.
that pours into that.
Saying, if the state person is the coming in president of LACMA, don't you think he will very quickly do something in LA County?
Oh, yeah, no, he's very energetic, and he's been involved, I think, since he was in medical school.
Yeah.
He's
Sorry, you have to stand up.
He's very young.
Yeah, go ahead.
Susie was first.
Some of our younger members are actually recruiting people when they go drop their kids off at, preschool or activities that their small kids are in and other parents are there, and they'll engage them in conversation. And, that seems to be an avenue for, once you get a few young members, that seems to be an avenue for building more membership, so.
And so they're finding members like just in common. They realize that the other person is also
Yeah.
awesome.
Mine was that you run into obstructions of some kind, and it used to be that the physicians would join their local medical society.
Mm-hmm.
And we had an in that when they had filled all their applications in, they would fill in a home address, phone number, and spouse. They don't do that anymore.
All the hospitals won't share.
A lot of them are being billed by the CMA, and when they come to the CMA, I asked Mike Steenberg about this, and I said, Michael, we're not getting addresses. He says, if they're paid with large numbers, like through Kaiser, somebody else, if there's large hospitals that pay for them, they don't get home addresses at CMA anymore.
Hmm.
So, let alone know whether they're married or not.
And we don't get emails or anything?
No.
Is there, I'm just curious if anybody has ever heard of, like, have we ever partnered with like hospitals? Because I know, I worked for a short stint at UCLA, and they had a role in there, and the person's role, I have to look her up on my LinkedIn profile, but her role was just as like a liaison for all residents, because they kind of were doing their own thing where they wanted to nurture that relationship when that person graduated and left, but keep them in the loop. And so I'm curious if there could be a way that we could partner, or if we've ever tried that. And
I used to have a contact at our local county hospital. She retired, and since then I can't even get the name of the new person.
Yeah.
Sometimes the hospitals will tell you that they can't furnish home addresses because of confidentiality.
Okay. How about email addresses? Do we get that too?
Nope.
No.
You mail it to them, and they'll say, "Oh, stick it in their box." Well, that's just as much as saying that's it going around file.
So one thing.
The association doesn't even get.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. So like LACMA has the names though of all the residents, and so we considered whether, like, that it's, at UCLA.edu, so it's like, well, you could sort of figure out, okay, this is his name at this, and see if it goes through. It's very challenging how to even connect to them, and it's a large part why I've really taken the time to go to the residence fairs, because then you're in their face talking to them and sharing about the Alliance, and a lot of them are very receptive, and you get their emails and they sign up, and then they can tell their friends, or LA's having a young physician mixer in a few weeks, and I'm trying to get all of them to come and get to know each other, and trying to set up a family day.
Who pays for that, Jen?
Huh?
Who pays for that mixer? How do you get a sponsor?
LACMA's doing it, but they get sponsors. Gustavo's very good at getting sponsors, honestly. He's been trying to add member benefits because LACMA's dues are so high, and people aren't
Jacqueline had
required
a
to join
comment.
anymore, where they were when my husband was.
Yeah, just real quick. So in Vegas, we don't, we have a hard time getting physicians into Nevada. One, because they don't think that Las Vegas is really like a place to raise a family. And so it's usually very, very hard for places to retain doctors or have them come to even just to interview. So when we reached out to the physician liaison, so now a lot of these private groups like Southwest Medical has a physician concierge, or the hospitals will have the physician liaison, and we make the case to them and we say, listen, a huge part of why physicians leave is because their spouse has, so their spouse has not integrated. And so I said, it's really to your benefit to promote the Alliance. As soon as you come in, as soon as you're interviewing somebody, have your you should schedule your interview times when you're bringing in these physicians around our luncheon dates or our dates so that they can just meet a group of people. If you connect with somebody on a personal level already, then you're half the battle's won, you know, happy wife, happy life, right? So I think that if, you know, we have certain challenges, but if you can somehow frame the argument that it really helps retention or just home satisfaction by having the alliance spouse connected.
Okay, go ahead, Susie.
Kind of related to Hank's comment. We actually, one of the major activities we have is helping to sponsor activities with the Medical Society. And they have at least one or two a year that are basically free to members, and they include residents. And the previous year, they did one at Chaffee Zoo after hours, so only the medical people having purchased tickets, they get tickets on e-bike, and doctors are usually free, and the spouses and children are kind of a minimal cost, includes dinner. And this year they're August 4th, I think they're doing one at one of the water parks, and we co-sponsored that. And this time we negotiated getting Alliance members free. But that does attract residents, and it attracts younger students, younger physicians, because it's kind of a family kid event.
It goes back to her saying the family is much more.
And then the other pool of recruitment avenues I'm curious is the retired physicians. Is there a retired, physician section of?
There's a Savvy Seniors.
Oh, okay.
We're on Facebook.
You're on
And
Facebook.
they have a closed Facebook crew, and you have to be over 65, but they're pretty engaged with each other, I think. It's a section that we
Okay.
have. And they have a lot of issues, actually, that, my spouse is retired, he's home all the time, he's under my feet, he's in my kitchen, what am I gonna do? Or a physician that just stops abruptly, and like Debbie's husband says, you need to kind of work into it.
You
and
need other interests.
Establish some hobbies, so you're not just left with nothing to do. Our best friend that happened to this year, he's a physician, he retired fully, and all of a sudden it was like, gosh, I don't have anything that I've cultivated along the way, I have nothing to do. And they have, the issue of closing your practice and financial stability and
Long-term care.
yes, there's just a whole host of other things that are just kind of, Jan Bausch has written a lot of articles about, legal advice for closing your practice and that sort of thing. So yeah, they have their own little niche, subsection.
I think here in Orange County, one of the problems with being at many of the events over the years is there are a number of subsections that have their own group. We have the Chinese American Medical Group, we have African American or Black Physicians Group, we have, there's just a number of them, the American Academy of Pediatrics, the anesthesiologists, the orthopedists, all those groups get together by themselves, then many of them see value in CMA, but obviously not many based on the numbers. So I think those groups is about the only thing that the doctors can do outside of their practices and still be able to go home at night sometimes. So that time issue is a real problem in trying to get all of them together in for one voice. We see it here. It's Orange County is notorious for that. Not showing up at one of the OCMA meetings, but always being at their subspecialty meetings. And that's not to put them down at all, because I was very involved with the Academy of Pediatrics, here in Orange County.
Well, doesn't LA have the largest number of ethnic physicians?
Well, LA probably does. They have the largest number of everything.
Yeah.
Well,
Including problems.
Yeah.
I mean,
I said it, LA County is larger than 42 states.
Yep, yeah.
We have all the problems and all of the benefits.
So that's to be looked at too, I think, subgroups. And I don't know in Las Vegas if you have it as much. You might.
We do. Yeah.
Yeah.
Large county.
So that kind of leads into, so we talked about some recruitment avenues with Regina's part on creating and achieving your recruitment goals.
Hi.
Hello.
I want to say first thank you, by the way, for having me to this meeting. I know I've said it a bunch of times, but I really do appreciate having the opportunity to come and see everyone and talk to you all. So thank you very much for the opportunity. So for recruitment, we've been talking about, what type of groups we're looking for and what type of people. And I think something we learn in public health is that the first step with any community project is the assessment phase. So really looking at your own alliance and saying, well, what do we have and what do we need? You may already have a great treasurer, a great secretary, or a great president. You may have a couple people lined up. So you have to kind of look at, like, if you already have these strengths, that's not really what you're looking for. You're looking for filling in the gaps. So I think it's important to look at your own alliance and figure out, what are we good at, what are we doing, and where do we need to fill things in. And then when you get to actually, the step 2 of the actual recruitment, there's a couple different things to think about with that. One of the things that you may be aware, I have a group at my husband's residency program. It's at the University of Arizona that I started called Partners of Medicine, and it's for the spouses and partners of the residents, so specifically just the residents and fellows at the University of Arizona. And when I started this group, I used the Alliance as my model because I've been mentored and taught so much by the Alliance of how to do this. And one of the things I found is that for the people in my group, my board of directors, is choosing the right person for the role is really important. So you think, well, we want to get somebody else to be secretary, we want somebody else to play this role or that role. But if it needs to be the right fit, right? Somebody who has the strengths and who can really excel in that role. So for instance, for my treasurer, she's somebody who's an accountant as her full-time job. So it makes sense, right? That role fits with her. And I thought that's really helped us with fitting people into the right role. And people like that when they get to use what they're good at to do a role, especially in volunteering. It makes them feel good. The next thing, we've talked about this a lot, is recognizing the changing face of medicine. So one of the things we do with our group is that we don't want it to be just women, right? And the Alliance has really recognized this too, is that you want to make sure that you recognize the fact that a lot of women physicians have their male spouses, so you want to reach out to them as well. Also, the way a family looks may be different. There's the whole LGBTQ community that we've been trying to reach out to as well. So it's not kind of what it maybe used to be in the past, and we're trying to really be aware of that. Another interesting thing to be aware of is also DOs. So DOs have become a lot more common in recent years, is that sometimes in certain areas of the country, you have to do a little bit extra work to reach out to DO families because there's still a little bit of that MD-DO sort of divide. I think we have to be honest about that, right? And so you want to make sure that you're looking at, do the DO families feel welcome as well? Because traditionally the Alliance is more MDs. So again, it's knowing that there's a lot of different people that you're looking at to recruit. The next thing to think about is there's this phrase in medicine, and my husband learned this when he was in first residencies in peds, where one of the attendings says you have to meet people where they're at. So it's great to go into the appointment and want to do all these changes, but if the family's not there yet, you're kind of wasting your words, right? And so when we think about that for the Alliance, people are busy, right? And so you think, well, maybe there's a role that can be split and divided to have 2 people do it instead of just 1. One person may feel overwhelmed doing this particular role. If you divide it into 2 people, they can do it as a team, they would be more likely to say yes. So this is what we do with our events. I have 2 people who do children's events and 2 people who do adults events because nobody wanted to do it by themselves. They thought that would be too much work. And so, giving people that opportunity, but in a way that kind of makes it reasonable for them and realistic, is important. And people, the next one is people in the training years. And we've talked about this. People in training, especially now, you move around a lot. You're somewhere for med school, you're somewhere for residency, you're somewhere else for fellowship, and then for the job. And so people may come full circle. They may go to another state and then come back. And so if they establish that relationship when they were in residency, they're more likely to come back to the Alliance. And that also means that if they're in the training years, maybe they can't necessarily serve on the board, they may not have the time, but they still want to come to an event. You know, it's just nice to be invited to an event. I remember when Nick was in medical school, and I went to my very first event at the Napa Alliance, and it was so nice to feel so welcome by this group of women that were really happy to have me there and to see me and to be mentors and to help have me be part of their alliance. And that was a big deal because med school, you know, like, you know what it is. I mean, Nick was gone all the time, so it was nice to have this, you know, additional connection of people. I went to events all the time. It was really enjoyable. I'm still friends with those people, and that was my first entry into the alliance. Is that they reached out to the medical school and said, "Do any spouses or partners want to come to our meeting?" And so that for them to take that big step to say that was how I arrived at the alliance, and that's where I am here today. So. Even though we may temporarily be in one spot for training, it doesn't mean that, you know, we may not be coming back at a later time. And then finally is knowing your community. Each community is unique, so what works for one may not work for another. That's especially true where I am in Arizona. Tucson and Phoenix are two totally different cities. So the stuff that we do in Phoenix, or that we do in Tucson, maybe wouldn't work in Phoenix, because Phoenix is a much bigger city than Tucson. And Tucson's kind of centered around the University of Arizona, so most of the residents and fellows are in that program. A lot of people work for that hospital. So, you know, when you look at what other communities do, think about, are there alliances, like how you can adapt it for your community and your needs. Because there's some great ideas out there, so just find a way to make it work for you. Hi. Goals versus objectives. So now we're getting to the part where we're thinking about the goals here, like we're thinking about recruitment, right? So your goal is sort of a broad statement of what you're hoping to accomplish. It might be like, our goal is to grow our alliance. And that's great, that sounds great, you know, but how do you do that? That's where objectives come in. So objectives are how you're going to accomplish that. And this is a very common sort of format used by like nonprofit organizations. We use this in public health, but you know, you have your goals of all these great ideas, and then you have to figure out how are we actually going to put this into practice. Because it's easy to sit in a meeting and talk about, you know, okay, we're going to get more members, but you have to find a way of doing that. So some of you may have seen this before. We call them SMART objectives. And so why are they called SMART? Well, they're specific, they are measurable, action-oriented, reasonable, and time-bound. So basically, when you have your goal, your SMART objectives are, how are we going to do this? And so I have some examples of a SMART objective if you're thinking about, if your goal is to grow your membership, right? So grow our membership. So what's a SMART objective that we can write out that fulfills those criteria? So for example, you say to increase our membership by 50% by June 2019 by reaching out to 3 residency training programs at local hospitals and inviting their spouses and partners to come to our August mixer to learn more about the Alliance. And that seems really specific, right? You think that's a very specific statement. But this is one way of really starting to nail down how you're going to start doing this, right? And so when you have all these ideas, you start putting them down, you can start assigning things to people. Who's going to do this part? Who's going to do that part? How much do we want to grow our lines? What's realistic? And I think that this is really helpful when I took a class last semester in public health, we went through SMART objectives for a program planning, and it was really helpful when we could actually sit down and say, like, this is how we're actually going to do it, rather than just sort of like, oh, these are great ideas we're going to go do. So I love SMART objectives, obviously. This is just one way to do it. You don't have to do it this way, but I think it's really nice to have a roadmap for your alliance, to sit down in a meeting, be able to write this all out. People can look at it, they know what their roles are going to be, they know what they need to be doing, and it's a way of measuring what you're doing too, right? So you know, like, you have a time frame, you can measure it. If you increase by 10 members, you know that's 10 members, that's a certain percentage of your membership. And I think it just helps people to have a roadmap of where they're going and what they need to be doing. So we did have an activity where we were going to have people sort of throw out different objectives. So we could do that, or we could. Should we do you want to try that? Yes.
Tell me what the SMART stands for. We can't.
Yeah, can you specific,
measurable.
Oh, specific, measurable, action-oriented, well, these are a little bit different.
Reasonable.
Yeah, so it depends on which format you use, but they're specific, meaningful or measurable, action-oriented or achievable, realistic or relevant, and timely or time-bound.
Okay, so I have a specific question.
Yes.
We have, at the national level, we have already identified all of these things. But the part that we're missing, and Mindy and I touched on this at lunch, is how do we get you? You know, where do we go to get you? Social media.
Are you thinking recruitment avenues?
Yes.
Right, so we talked about that a little bit earlier. So for instance, we were talking about, you know, reaching out to like training programs, finding that point person that you can talk to.
Yep, we've already done that.
The young physician guy who's running them.
We've done that.
Do that.
You know, here, I can throw another idea. Kaiser, for instance, you know, they have farmers markets every Friday.
Oh.
I don't know if you do that. A lot of the Kaisers have farmers markets certain days of the week.
Not in our town.
Really? Okay. So a lot of the Kaisers have farmers markets certain days of the week. No, and actually University of Arizona does this too. They have a farmers market a certain day of the week. Go to the farmers market, have a table, have your alliance there, because I can tell you the farmers market at the University of Arizona, the line for the burrito stand is like 90% residents. So it's, you know, it's something that like.
Table next to the burrito stand.
Well, but yeah, but it's something that like maybe somebody wouldn't have thought of before, because like I don't know how many attending spouses are going to the farmers market. It's a lot for the hospital employees, but it's like things like that where you're starting to, you know, tap into those little avenues, like a little bit at a time. And if your spouse does work at a big hospital, ask them, does your hospital have a farmers market? You know, do they have a wellness event, right? You know, wellness is a big thing now, right? Medicine, a lot of hospitals are having wellness fairs. So maybe you have a table at the wellness fair because the Alliance is part of wellness, right? And so it's things like that where like, you're probably not gonna get 30 members from your one table, but you just start getting a couple here and there.
Who know people.
Who know people, and the key is if you can get into that like one person who can like tell all the other peds wives or tell all the other, you know, internal medicine wives or spouses, right? Then you're getting that one person that you can connect with, and then they can start bringing people in. I know it's hard now because there are, like we were talking about, there's a lot of limits with privacy on what that you give you access to with emails and all that. And so it's really hard because if they won't let you have access to that, then you have to find a workaround, right? You have to find another way of going about it. And so I think it's worthwhile just to start trying different things, knowing that everything's not gonna work, but something will. And I think it's gonna be a process for everybody in the Alliance to start figuring this out, because I think there is a real transition period going on where we really have to figure out what's gonna work and what's not gonna work, and there's no real like roadmap for us on how to do that. We just have to start trying things, right? Because nobody could have predicted the way things have changed, you know, with medicine. So even with our, you know, with my partners in medicine group, so we know that we have over 700 residents and fellows at the University of Arizona in Tucson. So you figure maybe half of those have spouses or partners, which is, you know, it probably is more than that. But even with us, we have, I think we had like 71 members last year. So we know we're missing a lot of spouses and partners. And this is despite going through emails to the office at the GME, or having, you know, telling people when you go to an event, because a lot of times there'll be an event that are just for like a certain specialty of the residents, you know, for like peds, we'll have like a peds night out. Go to that and try and recruit. And so it's been hard even for our partners in medicine, to, even with my avenues of connections where I am able to email to the office of GME to get to the partners and spouses. So some new things we're trying this year is I'm gonna be going to teaching days to talk to the residents about our group, or going to the program coordinators when they have a meeting. They have a meeting once a month, because the program coordinators are really the ones who kind of have the pulse of what's happening. But I'm also focused on, you know, residents and fellows, which is just a different group, right? Because our group is specifically for residents and fellows, which is different than if somebody's at an attending level. And there is a Pima County Alliance in Tucson. It does exist, but they have not, as far as I know, they do not reach out to the university anyway to recruit. I don't know why that is, so that's something that, you know, I wonder about too. Why are they not reaching out to take advantage of all these spouses and partners here? And that's kind of what's happening too, is there's these spouse and partner groups are popping up because people are finding what works, right? That, this is a need that people had, and they filled it because the Pima County Alliance didn't. And so that's kind of it's not a problem, but it's something to think about, is if the Alliance doesn't fill that need, people are gonna go somewhere else. For instance, the Maricopa County Alliance, which is Phoenix, has, I believe, 10 members.
Wow.
And Phoenix is like mini LA. Phoenix is a massive city with tons of hospitals and training programs. And what's interesting is, I was speaking with the head of GME at the University of Arizona in Phoenix. They have about 300 residents and fellows. And they actually met with the Maricopa County Alliance to kind of find out what they did and all that. And the meeting, they said it was okay, but it seemed like there was a real disconnect. So it was kind of like this opportunity where they actually did reach out, and it didn't seem like it kind of came to fruition the way it could have. So, having these opportunities, they may not get that opportunity again. And that was the office of GME, right? I mean, that's the person you need to access if you want to start getting into, if your goal is to get spouses of partners of residents and fellows. So I just thought that was really interesting to hear about that, because you'd think that they would jump at that opportunity, and it didn't really seem like they did.
For your partners who get started, do you charge a token fee to be a member and then try to make your events very inexpensive?
So, and this is why these groups are popping up, is what's happening a lot in medicine is you have these partnerships. So University of Arizona partnered with Banner, which is a corporation, and so they're in Arizona and Colorado. So they partner together. And one of the benefits of that partnership is Banner funds our group. So we don't have to pay for anything. They give us, I negotiated the funding for the group, but what we've negotiated is that we get almost $10,000 a year to do our events for our members. And then the additional $5,000 goes to Phoenix for their group. Banner can do that. They're a big corporation, and so what's really great about that is that our members who are all in training don't have to pay for anything.
That's so great.
We have events, we can have a adults night out, they pay for everything. If we have a family event of some kind, like a picnic, they pay for everything.
What is Banner? What is that?
It's a corporation, it's a medical corporation that partnered with University of Arizona because they saw an opportunity. And so they, now it's called Banner University of Medicine as opposed to University of Arizona. It used to be University of Medicine.
Obviously they have money if they can get the school named after it.
I have a quick question. Do you think the most important time for us to go and engage is that it would be most useful to you during medical school or right after match?
Training years.
I mean, in the actual MD training years in your residency programs, or is it more important during medical school? I know it's always important for all of it, but which of those two could we target more over? You know what I'm saying?
Well, the predominant, all the data shows that a physician will stay where he trains. So it doesn't matter where he went to medical school, it matters where he trains. So wherever they do residency, they have a higher propensity to stay, so that's where you can really build your alliance.
So to focus on one thing per county throughout, to recommend for our counties throughout our state would be to engage with the residency programs. That seems to be a #1 target, to keep them there and to have the wives and or husband, spouses, whichever, happy.
Yeah.
That to me seems that it's kind of more narrowed down now that we see the data and those of you we've known since medical school.
Right, and another thing is, like I said, so this is becoming much more common for medical schools and training programs to have these site-specific spouse and partner groups, that are either funded by the hospital or by the medical school, and so those are popping up, or those have existed all across the nation for a long time. So they're filling that sort of niche of just that, that section of just medical school or just residency. And so you can reach out and partner with them, and take advantage of the fact that they already have this group of spouses and partners going that you can communicate with and partner with and get people that way. So it's a matter of working with these organizations, right? Because they already exist, they're going to exist. This is what people are starting to do because they want people who are exactly in the same stage as them.
That's right.
and especially when it comes to the training years, which is just very different than when you're an attending, right? It's just a totally different ballgame. And so, and that's why, you know, we started our group, why I started the group, Partners in Medicine, is because it was just specific to residency and fellowship there. But, you know, a lot of the residents and fellows, like once they're in the training, Banner recruits them very heavily to stay there. They give them like these huge bonuses if they sign on. And so, you know, there's no group to take over once they hit attending except for the Pima County Alliance, and I don't know how they interact. I don't know how they recruit, but they're missing an opportunity there. And so that's, and I'm not saying that in a judgmental way. I'm stating a fact. They're missing an opportunity. Because
I don't think Pima County is really active according to Mindy. Right.
That's interesting.
Is it very active?
Well, they have a Facebook group, but I think they have like 60 members on the Facebook group.
Well, that's interesting because she's the state quote unquote president. She said it's not active.
Maricopa County has 10 members.
Yeah.
So, I
Pima
mean.
County gets together socially.
They do most, but the problem is its events will be like a $65 plate
Yeah.
luncheon in December.
You're not gonna be able to do that.
We're not gonna be able to go that.
No.
But if somebody were willing to mentor someone, let's say I met an attending wife or husband or whatever, and
Sponsor you.
they sponsor you, then yeah, people are gonna go to that.
So if we were to look at giving grants for projects, maybe a very good project would be to give a grant to a group to help sponsor events for residents, spouses, in conjunction with our alliance.
Yeah, that's what we've been getting from the CMA grant.
Yeah, that's what Fresno does.
Right,
Yeah.
I know Fresno does it, but I'm saying overall even bigger to a group like you formed. Now, I don't know who you're giving it to in Fresno, you only have one school, you have one medical school there?
No, it's to their medical system.
Oh, to the medical
There's only
society.
one, Alliance.
Right, and the
Right.
UCS.
No, I said Fresno.
Yeah, the UCS Fresno, they have,
Yeah, I didn't say
they're
UCS,
over,
I said
they're
Fresno.
about 250, just under 300 residents in that program.
So that's one program, but your group has how many medical schools?
So both, and so that's the thing about having a unique community or the unique part of your community. Tucson is like just University of Arizona.
Okay.
That's there's other hospitals, but like that is the bulk of stuff. So another interesting thing is that, and I wanted to be real honest with you guys about what's going on in Arizona, so you understand that this is these opportunities are there and they're not being taken advantage of, and for the alliances there, that's concerning to me. So when they found out that the Maricopa County Alliance didn't really seem real interested in partnering with them or didn't really know what to do, they're like, well, we'll just do our own thing then. And so that was concerning to me because I said, well, I'm actually an alliance member and I really love the alliance, and that's, you know, I think there's so much value to it, right? So, you know, I don't want that to happen. I want the alliance to be where people go. So, you know, I know you're all doing a lot of work to recruit, and I think, again, it's gonna be a process, but I think we have to just keep innovating and trying things, because otherwise.
This is really helpful though.
Yeah.
Because it has us see
We have to clone
the
the
focus. I know, but the focus is where we need to focus. I mean, sometimes we were trying to do everything and we can't do everything. Great, what a great presentation.
So we wanted to end with a couple closing nuts and bolts. So this is where I think that we have to just have a very frank conversation and be very real with each other, because we spoke as younger members about what our experiences coming into an alliance, either county, state, or national level, what organized alliances look like. And all of these meetings keep talking about, well, what do we do to get more members? And what do we do? I think what I would like to stress too is, I'm trying to find a good word for it. I keep saying, well, don't bring people in unless you have your ducks in a row. There's nothing worse than bringing people in who are busy and they get in and you finally get them to a meeting or you finally get them to commit to something, and I call it an SS. Whoever figures out what that is, I'll buy you a glass of wine. I call it an SS, and I was trying to find a synonym for it, and I looked and there's a bunch of tweets. What's an appropriate synonym that's PC for an SS? So if you figure that out, and somebody said a shambles, okay? So I'll say it that way. we can't recruit people into our organization if our organization is a shambles. Because the minute you bring them in and they see it, forget it. So it's not just about recruiting, it's about retention, right? Not just retaining the talent that you have, but also retaining these new people that you work so hard to get. So, for example, we had one task force where the chair was fantastic, really fantastic, wonderful person, and she brought in all of these people, and it was on opioid, and we brought in an attorney, another gal was a PhD. I mean, these are high-level functioning women who are very, very busy, and we come in, and the first meeting was, so what do you guys all think we should do? Well, you know, it's just not going to work. So what I would like to talk to you about is sort of the nuts and bolts. It's one thing to talk about recruiting. Are you sure that your organization is ready? Let's just say you are so successful about recruiting. Are you sure your organization is ready to receive these new members and to have them leave and be a part of your organization satisfied? So the first thing I'd love for you all to do is make sure your organizational documents and your structure is in order, right? When were your bylaws updated? When were your standing rules updated? Are they clear? Our standing rules and bylaws still talked about facsimiles. Well, you know, you just turn people off. 2, do you have protocols in place? When somebody comes and joins, do they know who is responsible for the social media post versus who is responsible for the newsletter versus who, you know, is all of that clear? Or do you each come in each year and you're trying to reinvent the wheel and trying to figure it out? It doesn't look great to somebody who's already busy, and especially if they say, well, you guys have been around a long time, don't you know this? So get your protocols in order. The third thing is your board makeup. This is where Regina's point was very on point. If you're telling me that LA has an incredible ethnic diversity, I don't see that in this room, right? You attract people to your organization because they need to feel connected to somebody. They're not gonna feel connected on a picture on your website just because you're all physician spouses. They wanna see somebody that they feel a connection to. So, funny example, I was talking to somebody, we were doing a big thing on TV and about the Alliance, and they told me who they're bringing up, and I said, well, I think that's great, but have you thought about the optics of that on TV, that we should represent diversity not only in ethnicity? I said that we should represent diversity, and this person said to me, well, I've got 2 blondes, a brunette, and a redhead.
2 blondes and a redhead.
And myself, the 2 minorities in the room were like, that's not what we're talking about. You know, I mean, so when we did our board in Vegas, we knew that we really wanted to target the Indian physician community. So we actively searched for an Indian board member. We actively searched for 2 Indian committee members. We did the same with our older members. We did the same with younger members. We wanted, when you come to a meeting, we want that board to look like it represents your community. So there really has to be some true hard thought brought into that. And then 4, what's your onboarding procedure? Is there a true orientation? Is there true active mentorship? You have a lot of people giving up their time. They want to continue learning, you know? And I remember here, when we were all introducing ourselves, we're like, well, I was president, I was secretary, and you start counting all the positions. Well, all of those positions can teach somebody else how to do something. So you have to have an onboarding process that is a true ongoing orientation and leadership training, and I think that is a real loss from the AMA Alliance side that they're trying to bring back, which is bringing back leadership and confluence and so on. So I think that Mary Rice's online academy is going to be fantastic. And then finally,
are you referring to Indians as Indian subcontinent or Indian Native American?
Subcontinent. And then finally, organizational culture. I think that when you're trying to bring all these people on board, the absolute worst thing to say is, oh my gosh, well, you can talk to this person but not that person because they're so mad because 10 years ago, da 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 da. People who come into an organization don't need to know all the baggage of the organization. That shouldn't even be part of your culture. We as mentors need to sort of keep that at bay, and the young people coming in need to not feed that and not listen to it. So there's just, we can take a few minutes and talk about any questions and so on that you all have, but really that whole point of the cart before the horse is get your organization in order before you really go out and start recruiting, because you might get the absolute best people, and if they come, you're gonna lose them forever if it's not done well.
Before you came to Las Vegas, I didn't know very many people there, and I watched your style, which I love. It's made you very successful, your organization very successful. Did you have a lot to do when you joined to do this? Get it in order?
So I'll tell you, the reason why I wanted to sort of bring up Vegas as an example is we went from a very high to very low, back to very high in the last 10 years. So it's sort of like this case study of what went wrong and what went right again. So when I came on, I joined in 2004, 2005. 2007 was when we did our annual fundraiser, did like 96,000 in one afternoon. We don't have a ton of members, but we had our highest membership at that point, and we were really doing very, very well. And then in 2009, 2014, we lost 65, 70% of our membership. All of our lunches went from very, very well attended to like 4 people.
Oh, wow.
Board meetings were being held in private homes, sometimes at a bar, sometimes, no
Do you know
notice.
why?
It became very cliquey.
Okay.
And a lot of people just sort of became alienated, and it was like, oh, well, if you're friends with this person, we can't da-da-da-da-da. So we really had some rough times. So in 2014, really, that $96,000 event, in 2014, that same event raised $4,000.
Wow.
So that was our drop,
Yeah.
And so in 2015, when we came back, that was when we started doing very targeted board recruitment, when we started just all of that past baggage, we just swept it under the rug, and just started again. And so when you look at this alliance, so that top corner, that's Donna Newsom, she and Nelson Quay, I think they're 82 and 75, are like my best friend drinking buddies. a lot of people, it's not just targeting young people, it's targeting a mindset. And when you feel that energy, when your alliance gets a lot of young people, everybody still comes back out. Everybody still wants to have a good time. I partied with most of you all here. I know you guys do. And then the picture next to that is our young members with all their kids, and then next to that is some of our new members. We really like to show diversity. Bottom left is all the young Asians and Filipinos that we've just recruited, and you know how we got them? We did karaoke. And we showed them that we could not only have a good time, but we still got the work done.
Wow.
So, and then next to that, I love that picture of you, Cammie.
Mm-hmm.
But that picture of national, we are a national organization, and I know it's Rosemary and I there, but your national organization, your boards, everything, it really has to show diversity in ethnicity and diversity in age. But we did all kinds of things, like we did things that the members cared about. So that top one is goat yoga, and we were able to bring back a bunch of young members from that. We do a lot of evening events. We do a lot of collaboration where we leverage somebody else's event. For example, okay, I'm holding that tri-tip. there is an autism event in Vegas where we do a big barbecue, and what we tell this leadership is, as part of the board, you get to help pick the charity. You get to help direct where this organization goes. And I had my eye on this one gal, Kim Fonte, just a dynamo. And when she heard, because her son is autistic, when she heard that she could help steer our health initiatives or do something and partner with the medical community and the autism community, that's how we got her to do presidency 3 years up. We had our entire board leadership spread out for 3 years. That's unheard of, right?
Yes.
And it's because we made our organization about what our members cared about. So if you can, some of these people, they're doing these events already. They were already doing drug takebacks. They were already doing town halls. They were already doing the autism event. So we said, listen, our policy, we don't give any money, but we will promote. We created a team alliance. We will bring out a team of 30, 40 of our members, or even 10 of our members, to show up at your event, but you have to brand that event with our logo as well.
Even though you don't give them money.
Even though we don't give them money, but you understand how these events go. They need manpower. So, and a lot of times they feel like they get legitimacy because now they're part of the medical society, and then they forget about the alliance part. But, so we have them brand us with everything that they do. We promote their stuff on our website. So even though we're pretty small, we're mighty, we look like we do a lot.
And you do.
And we do a lot. But it's just really, don't give up those opportunities. And when they do something like that, recognize them on your social media. Make sure you pump out their logos. Because what happens is when you pump out their logo, they retweet your stuff or they share your posts, and then that gets you more engagement. And I just want to show you those top 2 things there are Facebook posts from our fashion show. The beautiful thing about reaching not just resident spouses, but the slightly older that have their own businesses, we get all of that done for free because I have on my board a person that owns her own marketing firm. I have on my board a graphic designer. We ended up launching all of our stuff on an app. We have our own app in the Apple Store. That is our entire directory, documents, everything. And we did all that because that's somebody on our board.
Is it your state one or your local?
Our county.
Ginger did that.
Yeah. So just back to everybody's point on this panel, it took us 2 years to get back there. So that first year is really hard work. If your organization is either a resurgence or needs to, regroup, take that year to really get your stuff in order, get your protocols in order, get all your documents in order, and at the same time, lay the groundwork for the recruiting. But as soon as they come in, you better show them that you've got it together. So that's our 2 cents. Do you guys have anything? Does anybody have questions or?
Is it possible to get the PowerPoints that were used or the slides?
Sure. Yes.
Sure.
Yeah.
You can
You guys
post it on the website.
Oh, yeah. Is there a question on that?
Oh, thank you.
Amazing job. Thank you guys so much. And
You
we
don't
hope it
look
was
good with
helpful.
the CCMSA logo on your chest.
It's invaluable to listen to things that maybe we haven't thought of, and that just opens us up to a resurgence that we know we can do when you've done it, which I didn't realize it ever took the dip, but I knew when you came in something happened. You and the team that you inspired to bring in. And those of you who have not been to her meetings, it was amazing, and I think we follow in the recommendations of doing some of these things like you guys were talking about. I think we can do that again with our state, and then start getting into the doctor spaces where it matters. CMA, being at their meeting, I think in October, we can reach out to people we don't normally get to see because we haven't been at their meeting before, other than to the maybe the inauguration of the state president, if you happen to go. But now we can do that and meet with the doctors who are running the young